I'm Alea. I'm with UMBC Recreation. I'm the Fitness and Wellness Assistant Director. And we're doing a collaboration with Chartwells with our registered dietitian on campus, Adam Sachs. I'm going to let Adam Sachs go ahead and give you some information. And then we'll have a question and answer session at the end. If you think of a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat, and then I will let Adam know what the question is. Thanks for joining us today.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adam Sachs. I am the campus resident registered dietitian. So on my regular stuff I do on campus is I'll usually meet with students, faculty, staff, anyone who kind of wants to have a separate meeting. I'll do that. Help a lot with dining services, with their menu design a little bit, especially with students or faculty and staff with any food allergies who follow special diets, vegan, vegetarian, or they keep kosher or halal, anything like that I kind of work with. And then I'll work with, obviously organizations around campus, whether it's recreation, clubs, athletes, what have you. So today, going to do kind of a short presentation, then followed by Q&A on fueling before and after your workout, kind of what foods to eat, what kind of stuff to avoid, timing of all that stuff, because that's really important, is the timing. So we'll get started. I have a kind of short document to share, and I'll kind of go down the line with that and go through some of those segments. All right. So first off, and I think this is something that a lot of people don't necessarily realize about, fueling for your exercise or for a sport or something like that, is it does kind of circulate around your carb intake. That's where your body's going to get the first and quickest form of energy. So your carbohydrates, all the way from simple sugars to your complex carbs, like your whole grains and beans and legumes, all those are kind of at play here. The reason those are going to be your quick energy is that's kind of what your body will quickly convert carbs into a stored version of carbohydrates. And it'll store that in your blood, your muscle cells, and your liver cells. And that's where it has the quickest access to use in terms of energy. Most of our exercise or activity is going to use those stores of carbohydrates to get energy to allow you to, work out. A lot of times, even if you're extending yourself for very, very long workouts, you're still burning mostly carbs. So that's why, before, definitely important to kind of get in those carbs in certain types and certain kinds at, certain time increments. And then afterwards, your body needs to restore some of those levels, again, in the, muscle cells and blood and your liver cells. So it's going to take whatever you eat to refill those levels. Regardless of what you eat, it's going to try and top those off. So if you're eating carbs afterwards, it's quickly going to convert that to refill what you lost. You're eating, something else, it's going to take part of that, say it's a high protein food, and convert it into stored carbohydrates. So it's kind of taking away from that other element. So that's why getting carbs, along with protein and other stuff afterwards is going to be important. All right, so another big thing is the timing of everything, food and hydration wise when you're working out or when you're exercising or playing a sport. So the timing really is going to be a big factor. It's going to vary for everyone. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about is, person to person. These are just kind of generalizations for, to meet the average exerciser, on a typical workout or typical day. So just know that this is going to vary. A lot of people can't eat a lot before they go exercise. And if, you're going to have stomach issues or something like that before you exercise, it's better for you to not eat than it is to try and force yourself to eat something and feel, uncomfortable. At the same time, you can adjust how your body tolerates food and stuff before eating. So, having a little bit and working your way up, you can kind of train your body to tolerate more and more. Because, properly fueling beforehand is going to be beneficial. Obviously, we want to make sure we're not uncomfortable or don't have any GI distress along with that. So pre-workout, this is all, again, the timing of this will depend. So I would say any more than like 3 hours before your workout, don't really have to worry too much about what you're eating. If you have a meal 3 or 4 hours before, you don't have to make any special changes to that meal or anything major. So that's what, a good chunk of that pre-workout nutrition is going to just be that meal you have before you go working out. Whether it is you work out in the morning, maybe you can fit in breakfast. If not, we'll talk about, I'll get onto that in a minute, but like, something small before a workout. But if you have the time, again, that 3 to 4 hours, just a normal meal or a normal snack at that point is fine. You don't have to make any changes. Couple things to avoid as you get closer to that workout time. So I would say once you start to get under 2 hours, want to start avoiding high fiber foods, want to start avoiding high fat foods, and want to start avoiding artificial sweeteners or artificial sugars. All three of these things, well, the fat and the fiber specifically, will slow down your digestion. So they can kind of make food or anything else you've recently eaten kind of sit in your stomach or sit in your digestive system. Often can be uncomfortable, especially once you start working out. So fat and fiber, that's going to slow everything down. You're probably going to feel kind of a little bit too full, or maybe have some indigestion or other GI issues if you've had, a meal or snack that's too high in fat and fiber. Artificial sugars, on the other hand, they draw a lot of water into your digestive system. So it can kind of give us that urge to go to the bathroom, cramping, and obviously we don't want water to be drawn out of things that we need, like muscles and stuff, when we're working out. So something you want to avoid as well, the artificial sweeteners, because they can just cause issues for some people, especially in those higher quantities. So kind of goal for about that 2 hour or less range, 40 to 60 grams of carbs, 1 to 2 hours before. And then, and this is for exercise lasting greater than 60 minutes. So if you're, going for some sort of workout that's 30 or 40 minutes, if you've, eaten sometime beforehand, you don't necessarily need to worry about having something like an hour before. If it's that shorter workout, you don't, the nutrition is not as vital in terms of that right beforehand. Obviously, keep your normal routine throughout the day, but you don't have to worry about fueling per se if it's going to be less than 60 minutes. 60 minutes or more, that's where you want to start to think about that fueling aspect. So that's where that 40 to 60 grams, 1 to 2 hours before. So what that looks like, on the other side of that, some examples, toast with jelly, that's an easy one. I would go with, at this point, if we're talking 2 hours or less, white toast instead of wheat toast. If it's greater than 2 hours, you'd probably be fine with doing the wheat toast. Granola and some low-fat yogurt. So the low-fat yogurt is just for the fact that you don't want too high-fat anything before you eat. Low-fat dairy has a decent amount of carbs in it, so there are some natural carbs in there. And then the granola, there's going to be a little fiber in there, but again, if you have that an hour or 2 hours before, it's not going to be a big issue. Your fruits are a good choice. A serving of fruit. Well, I would say definitely watch the dried fruit as you get really close, because again, there's a lot of fiber packed in that dried fruit. But you can even go, something as simple as pretzels or chips or sports drinks. A lot of the snack foods like pretzels or goldfish or something like that are pretty good. They have a little bit of salt, which is good for if you're going to work out. They have, they're pretty low fat for the most part. And again, pretty simple carbohydrates. And again, this is all beforehand. As you get really close to your workout, so once you get under, I would say 30 minutes, you really don't want to be having a ton of solid food unless your system can tolerate it. So, have a glass of fruit juice or have a sports drink at that 30-minute or less marker. If you're fine having a banana 20 or 30 minutes out, that's totally fine. But that's, if your body and how it works and how it responds to eating before your workout. But definitely still, regardless of what you've had before, I would try and limit the high fat foods, that 30 minutes beforehand, or, even up to an hour or 2 hours beforehand, because that fat is really going to slow things down. Moving on to during. Again, the during doesn't really matter too much if it's going to be less than 60 minutes long of exercise. Your body doesn't necessarily need anything if you've, eaten, drank relatively normally before you exercise, throughout the day. So less than 60 minutes, don't worry about it. Maybe take some water with you, but other than that, have a few sips. It doesn't really matter too much if you've, gotten some food in you beforehand. Again, once we get over that 60 minutes, that's where you might want to think about doing stuff during. So about 30 to 40 grams of very simple carbs per hour. So again, this would be, your longer run or a bike ride or a hike or something like that. That's, going to last longer than that hour, especially as we get up into if you go for a weekend hike and it's 2 out of 3 hours, you're definitely going to want to have something, nutrition wise and hydration wise. So for every hour about, if it's greater than an hour exercise, you want to have about, one small thing to eat, whether it's, half a sports drink, something like in those examples, about 30 or so grams of carbs, Similar examples to above, but it's just the more simple, the better. Your sports drinks, your fruit snacks are great because it's basically just, your simple sugars or simple fruit juices kind of boiled down. Plain crackers, the like sports gels or chews, I think are a decent option. Some sports drinks are kind of not for everyone. So I think the coconut waters are kind of popular, and they have, some of those natural sugars. They have some electrolytes, which are great. Again, a decent amount of carbs for that longer exercise session. So those are all a decent option. And hydration during. So again, if it's going to be less than 60 minutes, you don't actually need to worry too much about hydration. Maybe have a water bottle and take a sip or two, but you don't necessarily need it. Again, longer than that 60 minutes where you want to consider that. So for most people, 8 to 12 ounces of fluid every hour is going to be fine. It's going to hold you over, no problem. So again, if you have like the sports drink, that'll cover both your carbohydrate need and your fluid need, no problem. So just keep that in mind, whether you want to split it up into having a snack and a, just water, or if you want to have something that's combined, whether it's like a coconut water, fruit juice, or a sports drink. Kind of what you personally think you'll tolerate better, what works for your routine, what you've done before. And then getting into post-workout. So the biggest thing post-workout is to have a combination of carbs and protein. Like I had mentioned before, your body's going to use up all those carbs when it's exercising. So if you just have protein after your exercise or your sporting event or whatever, it's going to take some of that protein, convert it into carbs, and then use that to refill your stores. Whereas if you have carbs and protein, it's going to take the carbs to refill, and then it's going to use the protein to build muscle, strengthen muscle, repair muscle, that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what is part of the biggest benefits of exercise, is that muscle strengthening, muscle growth, that helps with maintain our metabolism and kind of keep us, more active and not get injured. So that combination of carbs and protein afterwards is ideal. Your body can only absorb a certain amount of protein in like a given sitting. So like in a given meal time, in terms of using it for that muscle growth or muscle repair. And this is just a kind of human upper limit. So even your Olympic athletes, their body can only absorb about 35 grams of protein in a sitting or in a digestive cycle. Now, mind you, they might have 35 grams of protein 6 to 8 times a day, whereas the average person only needs it 3 or 4 times a day. But you want to make sure you're getting close to that amount. So 20 to 35 grams, that should be a thing to aim for your main meals, but also for after, a big exercise or a big workout or something like that. So 20 to 35 grams of protein, and then 40 to 60 grams of carbs. And this can be your more complex carbs. And then what I mean by complex is you can get back to your grains, have a bowl of pasta, have a sandwich or something like that. If you're going to have a meal within an hour after your workout, just that'll, suffice as that carb and protein usually. So you don't feel like you need to have like an extra snack or extra recovery, item. If you're going to have a meal within an hour after your workout or close to an hour, you can kind of eyeball it. So just know that a meal can work for that. But if you're not going to have, several hours before your next meal, I would have, a substantial snack, get your carb and protein in there. Again, some examples on the other side, peanut butter and jelly, there's going to be some protein in the peanut butter. Bread actually has a little bit of protein. A smoothie is great because you can kind of adjust that to whatever you like. Cow's milk or soy milk, I would recommend with the smoothie, just because in terms of the protein. So a lot of the alternative milks, like the nut milks and oat milks and things like that, they are good if you have a certain allergy, or if you are trying to have like a lower calorie dairy drink, but there's not a lot to them nutritionally. So for example, almond milk or oat milk might have a gram or 2 of protein, whereas soy milk has almost as much protein as cow's milk. So in terms of a protein source, if you don't have cow or regular dairy, try to stick to soy just because of the protein and the nutrient amount in there. And then you can adjust, add some fruit to that, add some whatever you like, a spoonful of nut butter, honey, whatever. You can kind of tailor it to whatever, you're used to. Simple lunch meat and cheese sandwich will be good. Chocolate milk's a great thing. And I feel like that's kind of gone around throughout fitness and exercise circles of being like a secret recovery drink. The reason is it's got that perfect combination of carbs and protein. So it has, yes, it's got some sugar in there, but that's what your body needs right after a workout. Good amount of protein. They even have, chocolate soy milk, which again, that would be a great alternative if you're lactose intolerant or have an allergy or don't have, or if you're doing a vegan diet, something like that. So chocolate soy milk would work just as well. It's going to have about the same amount of protein. Yogurt and granola with some fruit, that would kind of add up to where you need to be. Hard-boiled eggs, I like to, recommend those just because those are quick and easy and you can kind of prep those a dozen at a time. They'll sit in your fridge for 2 or 3 weeks without a problem. So those are really good high protein, quick snack. Have those with chips or pretzels or fruit or something like that after your workout. I also like the string cheese, the low-fat string cheese, because they have about as much protein as an egg. And they're pre-portioned for you. They're relatively, inexpensive. I think, having 2 of those with some fruit or whatever, crackers, that's a great option as well. I will, if anyone wants to have a copy of this, go ahead and put your email in the chat and I'll jot those down and I'll send those out. And then now we can kind of open it up for question and answer.
So thanks for doing this.
Sure.
I'm curious if you're looking at this from a weight loss perspective, trying to gain muscle, lose fat. Is this a good combo? Because I try to eat around my workout block anyway to fuel like you were talking about, but some of these things that you've mentioned, I probably would never choose just because of the caloric value of them. So could you address that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. So with in terms of a weight management aspect to this, it works to a degree. So for example, especially with the growing, muscle growth, muscle strength, that's a big key with weight management because that's going to increase your metabolism. Muscle cells burn a lot more energy than other types of cells in your body. So they're going to burn a lot more energy. Again, that's raising your metabolism. So making sure, I would say, focusing on the recovery the most for that in terms of weight management is important because the, refilling those carb stores, your body can't quite recover adequately if it doesn't get those refilled. So having something afterwards is going to be really important. You certainly don't have to have anything major beforehand, just in terms of adding up total calories, but the after is going to be key for weight management, just because that's where you're going to get the most muscle repair, muscle growth, muscle protein synthesis. But you do need that carb and protein combo for afterwards, because that's going to kind of promote the most effective muscle growth, muscle repair, that kind of thing. So yeah, and you can certainly adjust portion size down. Obviously the amount of grams that were in the handout are kind of aimed for peak performance. So if you're, you can obviously tailor that down just to get a little bit something to get you some energy, but it doesn't need to be, that perfect amount for peak performance, just something to kind of get you going. And then, the recovery is what I would say focus on the most.
Adam, I'm curious what you would say about a bagel with cream cheese post-workout.
Sure. So pretty good. I would say go with low-fat cream cheese just because so per ounce, low-fat cream cheese has more protein just because there's, obviously the fat takes up space and room and stuff. So that way you're getting more protein per ounce of cream cheese. It'll get you a decent amount of protein. You'd have to put a fair amount on there, but I would say maybe have something small protein with that because you're getting plenty of carbs with that. Maybe have a hard-boiled egg with that or have a cheese stick with that. Or make a bagel sandwich with lunch meat instead of and maybe you half cream cheese and one or two slices of lunch meat would be kind of that perfect protein amount.
If there are no other questions, can I ask how chocolate milk was a carbohydrate? You might have said it, but it was hard to take it all in.
So, with the chocolate milk, usually they're going to add some sugar to that just with, to make it taste good, obviously. But then your milk has natural carbohydrates in it. So lactose is that natural carb. So there's already a little bit of that. And then they're adding obviously some sugar with the chocolate syrup or whatever they're adding to make it chocolate milk. So you're getting the carbs with that. And then, dairy in general has a great amount of protein. Unless you're lactose intolerant, it's actually a protein that our bodies digest the easiest. So soy protein and whey protein, which is in milk, is kind of the easiest for our body to digest. Again, if you're lactose intolerant, that's a different story. But that's why, soy is a great alternative for that, because our body absorbs a lot of it relatively easily compared to your animal proteins.
Adam, Hannah in chat asked, she says that she usually drinks like a pea protein and Greek yogurt smoothie. It doesn't have many carbs, so should I add something to that?
Yeah, I would say so. And it could be something as simple as just a piece of fruit or, a couple crackers, something like that. But that's definitely going to get you the protein you need. Maybe even just have like a granola bar with it too, something easy. Doesn't have to be anything you have to like make a meal with, just something to grab with that. But yeah, I would pair something with that. But that for the most part will probably be a great protein source.
She said, okay, thanks. If we don't have any more questions from anybody who's currently here, would you like to talk about some that have been submitted prior, Adam?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. A couple of them you guys kind of asked, so let me just look through. Someone asked, what is the best way for someone following a vegan diet to fuel after a cardio or weightlifting workout? So again, kind of answered this before, but the soy protein. So whether it's like getting like a protein bar or a protein shake that's got soy protein in it, or just, soy milk or something, that's probably your easiest and cheapest option. But again, if you're going to have a normal meal, and you have like tofu or tempeh with that as your post-exercise meal, that'll be a great source of protein. And again, those will all kind of adhere to a vegan diet. And then let's see. Someone asked, what would I suggest as the best way to keep your immune system strong, especially during the pandemic? So that's kind of something that I've seen a lot recently is a question of like what boosts your immune system. The answer is nothing really boosts it. There's things that can support it, support your healthy immune system. So obviously there's things that will damage our immune system or damage our body's ability to fight off something. So, getting poor sleep, high stress, too much alcohol, things like that will reduce your immune system's functioning. But on the other hand, things to support it, getting your fruits and vegetables, vitamins and minerals. Vitamin C has a big one that helps support a healthy immune system. But just in general, making sure you're eating enough as well. If you're undernourished or not quite getting enough or feeling hungry all the time, it might put a little damper on your immune system. And then there actually has been some pretty good research coming out about vitamin D for if you catch coronavirus, it prevents it from being as serious if you have adequate vitamin D levels. And as we get into like the fall and winter, that's when people's levels start to drop. So my suggestion for that, look for fortified foods. Most of your cereal grains have vitamin D added. Most of your cow's milk and soy milk have fortified with vitamin D. A lot of orange juices are fortified with vitamin D. But also taking an over-the-counter supplement doesn't hurt either. And let's see. Got a couple more, and I'll just do a few more, and then if anyone else remembers anything else. Let's see. So someone asked, are pre-made recovery drinks good for you? And that really depends. I would say kind of shy away from some of the really specific marketed products that are, having like proprietary blends of XYZ. A lot of that you're just paying for nothing. It doesn't necessarily help you any. It is, a lot of these, especially with the supplements, like when you're, GNC or vitamin oil, something like that, a lot of those types of supplements are very unregulated. So you don't necessarily know what's in there, but also it could either be doing nothing to help you, or it could even potentially be not good for you. So the simpler, the better, even for like a recovery drink or protein powder. So what I usually will tell people if they want to do a protein powder is look for either whey protein isolate or soy protein isolate, which all that means is it's just that protein in powder form. You can find it you can find it like store brands of it in the grocery store, in like the health food aisle. So usually it'll be relatively inexpensive compared to some of your, kind of like exercise store or like GNC versions. And again, they have flavors like vanilla or chocolate, or they just have plain. You can kind of put a scoop or two in a smoothie. That would be my best recommendation in terms of like cost per serving, as well as just you're getting what's in there and you don't really need much else, and there's no junk in it. Let's see. And then someone asked, do I need to drink a pre-workout? So my answer to that is, again, not really. So a lot of those, again, are kind of unregulated, so you don't necessarily know what's in there, but a lot of them are just a combination of a bunch of very mild stimulants. So usually it's like caffeine, guanine, taurine, green tea extract, a bunch of other stuff. So separated, none of those are really anything, super potent, but together they can kind of cause some issues in some people, heart palpitations, things like that. It's just a lot of stimulants all packed into one serving of something, and they're not necessarily helping your performance. A lot of times they just make you feel jittery, but they won't actually help your exercise or your performance at all. The best research I've seen is with just caffeine. So whether it's tea, coffee, caffeine pill, it reduces the perception of exertion, so it makes you feel less tired. So you're able to do that little bit of extra. Or if you're, trying to get a few minutes longer, whether it's on the treadmill or lifting weights or something like that, it kind of reduces your brain's perception of effort minorly. So you're not going to hurt yourself or anything, but it just kind of makes you get that little bit extra. And also, it does help with muscle twitch fibers, gets those running a little bit quicker, and it can increase your focus. So, a lot of times if you're feeling like kind of dragging, caffeine will increase that focus. So you're able to kind of dial into your workout a little bit better. Other than that, I don't think you don't really need to try anything else. If you are fine without caffeine, you don't necessarily need to have it. But if it's something that you're looking for a little boost, that's probably the easiest and safest thing. And I think most of the other questions were pretty much covered. Any other questions while I went over those?
So you talked a lot about endurance, like hour-long or longer workouts. So right now, a lot of high intensity interval training, high intensity weightlifting, those kind of functional fitness workouts are really popular right now. And most of those are hardly ever are they an hour or longer. So what would you still recommend drinking a protein shake or having a post-workout snack after a 30-minute workout as opposed to an hour or longer workout?
So with the post, like the recovery stuff, I would say yes, still have something regardless. The easiest way to do, especially if you're not looking to have anything extra, is just kind of line up a meal within an hour or so afterwards. But you could even dial that down to just a very, very small snack. So, regardless, you want something to kind of help with that recovery, but it doesn't need to be as much as listed in the handout. In terms of, obviously with the shorter workouts, you don't need to worry about anything during. Just make sure you're, have had something to eat, even if it's several hours before you do one of those workouts, totally fine. But with those workouts, so the higher intensity a workout is, the more carbs your body is going to burn, because it needs carbs can burn either with or without your body taking in oxygen. So when it's a really high intensity workouts in a short amount of time, your body's strictly using stored carbs. So that's, make sure you've had some sort of carbohydrate before. It doesn't need to be, 30 minutes before, just before during that day, because that's what your body's going to use. With those longer workouts, your body can, burn carbs a little bit more slowly. You still do need, obviously, carbs before that, but it also can burn other things like fat and protein during those longer workouts.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much, Adam. We really appreciate you coming on here today, helping us with our pre and post workout nutrition, as well as during your workouts. And thank you, participants, for taking time out of your afternoon to join us. And this will be available on our Instagram and our YouTube recreation pages. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Alea Burke, or Adam. Just send us an email. We'll be happy to connect with you. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.